In The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 500, Peter is given the chance to talk to his Uncle Ben one last time. Just for context for the issue, Peter teams up with the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and the X-Men to stop the interdimensional mindless ones from destroying the city. Reed Richards creates a device to stop the invasion. However, he fired it too early, which unleashed the villainous Dormammu. Peter jumped in between Doctor Strange and Dormammu's fight, sending him and Doctor Strange outside of time. The fallout being that the heroes of New York lost. They were all killed and New York was decimated. With Peter now lost in time, he's now able to go back to his past, present, and future self. He realizes he now has the potential to change it all. It then follows his journey, going into the past where he gets bit by the spider. He contemplates hitting the spider, getting it out of the way, preventing him from ever becoming Spider-Man in the first place. He then sees himself in the future, being surrounded by armed men and women telling him not to move. He contemplates there as well, saying he can jump in and save his future self, find out what's going on, and figure out what to do next. His future self then talks to the leader of the armed people, William Lamont, who tries to convince future Spidey that it doesn't have to be like this. William tells Peter to not do what he has to do, tells him he's not as fast as he used to be, and that officers have the tech to kill him. Future Spidey mentions how nothing matters anymore, and that he understands William's trying to help, but says it's too late, and what has to be done, whatever it is, has to be done. He then tells William goodbye, shakes his hand, and tells him to walk away and not look back. He then looks back at the grave of Aunt May, saying how things are better this way, and better for MJ, and for his son, Ben. He then mentions how they had a good run, and MJ never stopped loving them, even when it all went bad. He then says nothing else matters, as he charges at the officers, with our Spider-Man reminding himself to tell MJ he loves her every day, and to always reassure her. It then shows future Spidey getting shot down and killed. It then shows Peter again with his past self, right before the spider bite. He tells himself he can stop all of it, telling himself that Ben doesn't have to die because of him. He then asks, however, how many others would die because he wasn't there to save him. He then battles the decision. He apologizes to Ben, but then continuously tells himself he can't go through with it, with him ultimately not doing it and the spider bite going through, hurting his past and present self. He then apologizes to Uncle Ben, thinking he would have wanted better for him. Doctor Strange's voice then appears and talks to Peter, telling him that it took all of his power to find him in a time stream, and that Peter's too far down the timeline for him to come get Peter. He then tells Peter to come find him, and the only way for him to do that is to escape the time stream, telling Peter to come back up to his own timeline until he reaches the present. He sends Peter the spell of becoming, which I guess guides Peter right before Dormammu was released. He tells Peter that he has to stop them before opening a door, or else they're all doomed. Peter is then sent throughout time back to some of his classic adventures, landing him first into an old fight with Sandman he had back in high school. Peter then realizes that he's not just there visiting, but he's actually reliving those moments, so he can be hurt or killed. Peter doesn't necessarily mind it, but mentions how exhausted he is, which could be a detriment to him. In the middle of the fight, he's then transported suddenly to a fight he's had with Vulture. Vulture drops him from the sky into a water tower. Peter, being exhausted, nearly drowns until he hears Strange's voice again, giving him the motivation once again to get out from under the water. He's then transported to a fight with his first battle with Lizard nearly killing Peter, but Peter musters all his strength to push Dr. Connors off of him. He's then transported to a fight with Electro, with Peter asking himself why these guys always refer to themselves as third person, and him remembering he picked up rubber gloves on the way there to fight Electro. He then wakes up to see his old girlfriend, Betty Brant, holding the body of her dead brother. Peter tries to tell her that there wasn't anything anyone could do, with Betty slapping Peter, telling him it's all his fault he's dead. Before he's able to say anything, he's then transported to a fight with Mysterio. As he's standing there against him, trying to catch his breath, the Hulk then appears and attacks him, crushing some debris under him. He's then taken away again, this time under something that Peter mentions feels like steel. He then realizes that he's under the ISO 36, which is a serum that Aunt May needs or else she'll die. Peter mentions how he was barely able to move it before, but it seems impossible in his exhausted condition. Peter then tells himself that this is real and not a dream, and tells himself he can't give up, using all his strength to lift up the steel. He's then transported to the day Gwen Stacy is killed by Green Goblin. He tries to save her, but she ends up dying. Peter is now depressed, with Strange telling him to follow his voice, with Peter refusing, saying he can't take it anymore. Peter tells himself that it's all just violence and madness, and how he always lets people die. Strange then mentions to him that the greatest gift anyone could receive is to have the chance to make a difference, and assures Peter that he has made a difference for others that's enough for 100 lifetimes. Strange then tells him that if he stops now, then it will be all for nothing. Peter then gathers up the strength and trudges on. The next panel is a big frame of Peter just going through different points of his life, fighting on, trying to get to the end of it all. until finally, he's back to the day it all started, in the present, fighting with the other heroes. Peter quickly gets to Reed Richards and stops him right before he shoots a device that loses them the battle. Peter explains to them the situation he's been in, with Iron Man asking Reed if that's all possible, with Reed saying it is. The heroes trust Peter, with Peter acknowledging it, saying that he's earned their trust. They fight on, until Strange manages to get into the fight, and casts a spell that's able to let them win the battle to save New York. Strange and Peter then talk afterwards. Peter asks what happened to the Strange that went into time with him, if he's gone now or whatever the case may be. Strange tells him that he's not sure, but tells Peter he found this at the end of the battle, a gift to Peter. Peter accepts it, but realizes right after that it's his birthday, so he rushes back home to see MJ and Aunt May there, saying happy birthday to him. After the party, he goes outside and looks at the gift Strange gave him. When he does, he sees Uncle Ben right behind him. Ben mentions how the last thing he remembers was a gunshot when he walked through the door, but he then tells Peter that it doesn't matter, and that what matters is that Peter is there. Peter tells Uncle Ben there's so many things he wants to tell him, and so many things he wants to ask his forgiveness for, with Uncle Ben telling him there's no need for such a thing. Uncle Ben tells him that everyone messes up, and that he thinks it's honestly a necessity. He then tells Peter that the thing that would disappoint him the most is if Peter settled for less, and walked away from what he believed, and asks Peter if he's done that. Peter tells him he hasn't, with Uncle Ben saying that because of that, he's taught him right and his life has meaning. Peter then tells him that he has abilities, things that he needs to know. Uncle Ben then responds with him asking one question, and asks Peter if he's truly happy. He tells Peter that at the end of the day, we all go through pain, we lose people, we suffer, it's the price of being human. He asks Peter again that at the end of the day, however, does he like his life and if he's happy. Peter reminisces of his past adventures, and after some thought, he tells Uncle Ben that's the damnedest thing to him, but he is happy. He tells Ben he has a good life, a real good life, and that he's very lucky, and sometimes he doesn't realize how lucky he is. Uncle Ben tells him that's the only thing that matters. Peter agrees, but tells him how much he misses him. Uncle Ben tells him that he missed Peter too, and that he loves him, with Peter telling Ben he loves him too. Uncle Ben says goodbye to Peter, and tells him to take care of Aunt May for him. Peter swears that he will. He always has and always will. Uncle Ben then vanishes. MJ then asks Peter if he had a nice stroll on the roof. Peter then goes on to tell MJ that he loves her so much, and wants her to know that every single day. MJ then tells Peter that he loves him. The story ends with MJ wishing Peter one last happy birthday, ending one of the biggest adventures Peter has ever had.